Desperate whinnies echoed from the well. The millionaire hesitated in his car. It wasn't his problem. But when he saw the horse drowning in the mud, something in his hardened chest broke. That rescue would change everything. Before we begin this story of transformation, tell me where you're watching from. Go ahead and get comfortable. And please don't forget to support us by hitting the like button if you believe compassion can change lives. All set? Let's begin. The rain hammered against the Bentley's windshield as he drove down the dirt road. Marcus Wellington adjusted the rearview mirror and scowled at the mud splattering the car's flawless bodywork. 60 years of life, 40 spent building a real estate empire, and here he was, getting dirty on some forgotten back road in the middle of nowhere. "Damn inspection," he muttered, glancing at the Patek Philippe on his wrist. The 800-acre property he'd just bought would be perfect for the new shopping mall. Another rural community giving way to progress, more profit. The car's hands-free system rang. His lawyer's metallic voice filled the cabin. "Marcus, the papers are ready. We can begin evicting the families on Monday." "Perfect, Thompson. The sooner, the better. I don't want any drama from these country folk." That's when he heard it. A sound that cut through the noise of the rain and the engine, whinnies, desperate, agonizing, coming from somewhere nearby. He slowed down, annoyed by the interruption. In the rearview mirror, he could see the city lights growing distant. Ahead, there was only the dusty road and pastures that would soon be concrete. The whinny sounded again. Louder, more desperate. "What the hell is that?" He stopped the car and got out, the cold rain soaking his $5,000 Italian suit. The sound was coming from behind a broken fence where the vegetation grew wild. He walked over, irritated, his leather shoes sinking into the mud. There, hidden by the brush, was an old well. It must have been about 15 feet deep, its walls covered in moss, with mud pooled at the bottom. And in the center of that natural trap was a horse. It wasn't just any horse. It was a magnificent stallion, with a golden brown coat and a white star on its forehead. But now it was stuck in the mud up to its chest, struggling to stay upright. Every movement made it sink deeper. "Damn it!" he said, pulling his phone from his pocket. No signal. The animal saw him and whinnied again. There was something in its eyes. Intelligence, desperation, and a strange dignity, even in the face of death. Marcus stood at the edge of the well, calculating. It wasn't his problem. He had appointments, meetings. The land would be his regardless of what happened to some stray horse. He turned back toward the car, but the whinnies continued. Weaker now, as if the animal was losing its strength. "Not my problem," he muttered, his hand on the Bentley's door handle. He looked back one last time. The horse had stopped struggling and was now just watching him. Those large, expressive brown eyes seemed to pierce through something in his chest he'd forgotten existed. Shit! He returned to the well and assessed the situation. The walls were too steep for him to climb down without equipment, but on the abandoned property next door, he saw an old house and a barn. Maybe there were ropes, tools. He ran over, no longer caring about the rain or the mud. The barn door was unlocked. Inside, he found old ropes, some planks of wood, and a rusty pulley. "It'll have to do," he said to himself, carrying everything back. He tied the rope to the nearest tree and tested its strength. It wasn't ideal, but it might work. He climbed down slowly, his shoes slipping on the wet stones. The mud was up to his knees when he hit the bottom of the well. The horse was exhausted, trembling, but still standing. "Easy, boy, easy." His voice came out softer than he'd intended. He approached slowly, his hands outstretched. The animal didn't back away. "We're gonna get you out of here." Why was he doing this? Why did he care? They were questions he couldn't answer as he looped the makeshift rope around the horse's chest, speaking softly, as if the words could calm both the animal and himself. The mud clung to his expensive clothes, rain dripped down his neck, but for the first time in decades he felt alive. The rescue took nearly 2 hours. Marcus had to improvise a pulley system with the old planks, transforming into a man he didn't recognize, dirty, wet, determined. Every pull on the rope drew grunts of effort from him and whinnies of pain from the horse. "Come on, boy, just a little more." His hands, used to only signing contracts and shaking hands in meetings, were now raw. Blood mixed with mud covered his palms, but he didn't stop. When he finally managed to hoist the animal out, they both collapsed onto the wet grass, exhausted. The horse was shivering violently, covered in mud up to its neck. One of its hind legs was injured, likely hurt in the struggle to escape. Marcus approached slowly. The animal didn't shy away. "You're hurt," he murmured, examining the leg. "You need care." He looked around. The abandoned property had a barn that could serve as a temporary shelter. But first, he needed to clean the horse and treat the wound. He found an old hose connected to an artesian well that still worked. The water came out cold, but it was clean. The horse let itself be washed docilely, as if it understood this man was trying to help. "How'd you end up in there, huh?" He didn't expect an answer, but asking questions out loud helped him process what was happening. When was the last time he had cared for another living being? When was the last time his hands had been used for something other than accumulating wealth? The wound wasn't serious, just a few superficial scrapes. He tore the sleeve of his silk shirt and fashioned a makeshift bandage. Not ideal, but it'll have to do. The horse watched him with those intelligent eyes. There was gratitude there, but also something more, as if it were sizing up the man who had saved it. When he finished the basic care, the rain had eased to a fine drizzle. The sun was beginning to peek through the clouds, creating an ethereal steam that rose from the damp earth. Marcus stepped back and pulled out his phone. He had a signal now. Several missed calls from Thompson, from his secretary, from business partners. The world had kept spinning without him, but as he looked at the horse, which was now grazing calmly on the grass, something strange happened. For the first time in years, he felt no rush to get back to his commitments. He didn't feel the familiar anxiety of losing money with every passing minute. "Marcus? Marcus, are you there?" Thompson's voice echoed from the phone. He'd automatically called the last number. "I'm here." "Where the hell have you been? We have the meeting with the investors in an hour." Marcus looked at his ruined clothes, his dirty hands, at the horse that had saved him from something he didn't even know he needed saving from. "Cancel it." "What do you mean, cancel it? There's 15 million on the line." "Cancel the meeting, Thompson. We'll reschedule for tomorrow." "But Marcus..." He hung up the phone. The horse had approached while he was talking. It was now just a few feet away, watching him with an almost human curiosity. "You don't have an owner, do you?" He looked for brands, horseshoes, any sign that it belonged to someone. Nothing. A wild horse, probably roaming the area for years. "Now what? What do I do with you?" The obvious answer was to call animal control. Let someone else handle the problem, go back to his life, his meetings, his business deals. But when he started to walk toward the Bentley, the horse followed him, not closely, maintaining a respectful distance, but definitely following. Marcus stopped. "I can't take you with me, boy. I live in a penthouse downtown." The horse stopped too, as if it understood. As they stood there, man and animal watching each other in the golden late afternoon light, something shifted. Marcus couldn't name it, but he felt a crack opening in his chest, as if a wall he'd spent decades building was starting to crumble. The next morning, Marcus returned. He hadn't planned to, but he found himself driving down the same dirt road, carrying hay, feed, and veterinary supplies he'd bought in town. "Just to make sure he's okay," he justified to himself. The horse was in the same spot where he'd left it, grazing peacefully near the barn. When it saw the Bentley approaching, it raised its head and whinnied softly, like a greeting. "Good morning to you too." He unloaded the supplies and checked the injured leg again. It was healing well, with no signs of infection. The animal let him touch it without resistance, as if a tacit trust had been established between them. While he changed the makeshift bandage to a proper one, his mind worked on pending business, the rescheduled meeting with the investors, the deadlines for demolishing the houses, the projected profits. But every time he tried to focus on the numbers, his eyes returned to the horse. "I need to come up with a name for you." The animal seemed to approve of the idea, shaking its golden mane. "How about Zeus? No, too obvious." He thought for a moment. "Apollo? Not that either." The horse came closer and rested its muzzle on his shoulder. The simple, trusting gesture caught him off guard. "Thunder," he said finally, "because of the storm yesterday." Thunder whinnied softly, as if in approval. Marcus spent the rest of the morning there, tidying up the makeshift shelter, making sure the animal had clean water and enough food. It was strange how slowly time passed, so different from the constant rush of his city life. When he finally looked at his watch, it was past noon. He'd missed 2 important meetings. "I have to go," he said to Thunder. "I have responsibilities." But as he walked toward the car, a voice made him stop. "Excuse me, sir." He turned to see an elderly woman walking down the road. She must have been in her 70s, with grey hair in a simple bun and modest but clean clothes. She was carrying a basket of vegetables. "Can I help you? I saw your car here yesterday and again today. We don't often see city folks out this way." There was something in her tone that wasn't confrontational, just curious. "I'm taking care of a matter." The woman looked past him and saw Thunder. "My goodness," she murmured, dropping her basket. "It's him." "Him? This horse. I knew him when he was just a foal." Her eyes filled with tears. "He belonged to my husband, my late Joseph." Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. "Your husband?" "Joseph raised horses here for 40 years. Thunder was his favorite mare's son. When my husband passed 3 years ago, I tried to keep the animals, but—" Her voice broke. "I couldn't. Most were sold. Some ran off. Thunder disappeared 2 years ago." Marcus looked at the horse, who was now approaching the woman with clear recognition. "Mrs. Elena Miller." She held out a trembling hand to Thunder, who nuzzled his muzzle into her palm. "I never thought I'd see him again. This property, it was ours, mine and Joseph's. We sold it to a company 6 months ago. We needed the money to pay off the debts." She looked at him closely. "Are you with the company that bought it?" Marcus swallowed hard. His company, his land, his decision to remove the remaining families from the area. "I'm Marcus Wellington." The name seemed to mean nothing to her. "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Wellington. I'm so glad someone is looking after him." Thunder moved between them, as if sensing the tension in the air. "You lived here?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. "For 50 years, over in the blue house on the other side of the hill." Elena pointed in a direction he couldn't see from where they stood. "We raised our 3 children here. Joseph turned this place into a little piece of heaven." She bent down to stroke Thunder's neck, and the horse lowered its head to make it easier. "He was always special. Joseph used to say Thunder had a human soul. He saved our youngest daughter once, when she was just a little girl. She'd gotten lost in the woods, and he brought her back home riding on his back." Marcus watched the scene, feeling something twist in his stomach. In the paperwork he'd reviewed, these people were just numbers, properties to be acquired, obstacles to be removed. "Why did you sell?" Elena sighed, her eyes still on Thunder. "After Joseph died, the bills got hard. The farm wasn't as profitable as it used to be. The kids moved to the city, and then the hospital bills came." Her voice became almost a whisper. "We had no choice. And now? Where do you live?" "In a small rented house in town. It's small, but it'll do." She smiled sadly. I miss the quiet out here. The city is so noisy. Thunder moved away from Elena and walked over to Marcus, resting his muzzle on his chest. It was as if the animal was trying to connect them somehow. "Are you a veterinarian?" Elena asked. "No, I'm in real estate development." "Oh." She nodded, not fully understanding. "It's good that there are people like you, willing to take care of abandoned animals." The irony of her words hit him like a punch. If she knew he was the one responsible for turning her old home into another shopping mall. "Mrs. Miller," he began, but his voice failed him. "Yes." Marcus looked at Thunder, then at the elderly woman stroking the animal with such love. He thought of the blueprints on his desk, the projected profits, the meeting he would miss if he stayed any longer. "Nothing. Just take care." "Thank you, Mr. Wellington, and thank you for taking care of him." Eleanor gave Thunder one last pat. Joseph would be happy to know he found someone good. She picked up her basket and started walking away down the road. Marcus watched until she disappeared around the bend, her small, solitary figure a stark contrast to the vastness of the countryside. Thunder remained by his side, as if sensing his inner turmoil. "Damn it," Marcus muttered. "Damn it, damn it, damn it." He pulled out his phone and called Thompson. "Marcus, where are you? The investors are furious." "Thompson, I need information on the Miller property. Elena Miller." "Miller? Let me see. Ah, yes, the widow. Property was paid off 6 months ago. Why? Did she get a fair price?" "Marcus, what are you talking about? We paid market value, in fact a little over, considering the state of the property." "How much?" $120,000. For a dilapidated rural property, it was generous. $120,000. To Marcus, it was what he might spend in a week. For Elena, it had been enough to pay off debts and start over in a tiny house in the city. "The other property owners in the area?" "They're all gone or in the process of leaving, just as planned." "Marcus, are you okay? You sound strange." Marcus hung up without answering. Thunder watched him with those intelligent brown eyes. Was there judgment in them? Understanding? Or was he just projecting his own feelings onto the animal? "She raised you, didn't she?" The horse nodded its head, as if it understood. "And now you're here with me, the man who bought your home to tear it down." Marcus sat on a nearby rock, his head in his hands. Thunder came closer and gently rested his muzzle on his shoulder, a gesture that seemed meant to console him. Why did life have to be so complicated? In the days that followed, Marcus found himself returning to the property every morning, always with some excuse, to check on Thunder's wound, to bring supplies to better organize the shelter. But the truth was, he needed to be there. Thunder always waited for him in the same spot, near the barn. It was as if he knew exactly when Marcus would arrive. The animal had gained weight, his coat had a healthier shine, and the injured leg was completely healed. "You're getting spoiled," Marcus said one morning while brushing the golden mane. "Premium feed, vitamins, VIP treatment." Thunder whinnied softly, seeming pleased. It was during one of these visits that Marcus found the journal. He was cleaning out the barn, making the space more comfortable for Thunder, when he tripped on a loose floorboard. Underneath was an old chest, protected from the damp by a tarp. Inside, among old photographs and yellow documents, he found a leather-bound notebook. On the first page, in careful script, "Miller Ranch Journal, Joseph Miller, 1985. Marcus hesitated before opening it. It was an invasion of privacy. But curiosity won. The first entries spoke of buying the property, the dreams of raising horses, the plans for the future. Joseph wrote about Elena, about their young children, about the hope of building something that would last. Thunder was born today, read an entry from 10 years ago. Our mare Star gave birth to a magnificent colt. Elena says he has human eyes. Maybe she's right. Marcus turned the pages, engrossed. A family's life unfolded before him through the simple words of a man who loved his land and his animals. "Thunder saved our little Lily today," said a later entry. "She got lost in the woods and he found her, brought her back home like a sheepdog. This horse is special." There were loose photos between the pages. Joseph smiling next to a young Thunder. Eleanor feeding the horses. The children playing in the fields. "Times are hard," read one of the last entries, dated 2 years ago. "The medical bills are piling up. Elena tries to be strong, but I know she's worried. Thunder seems to sense our sadness. He spends more time near the house, as if wanting to protect us." The final entry was written in a shaky hand. "If anything happens to me, I hope someone takes care of the animals, especially Thunder. He has a special soul. He deserves someone who understands that." Marcus closed the journal, his hands trembling. Thunder had approached silently and was now right beside him, looking at the notebook as if he too understood its importance. "He loved you very much," Marcus murmured. At that moment his phone rang. Thompson, as always. "Marcus, I need an answer. The investors are losing their patience. When do we start demolition?" Marcus looked around. He now saw what Joseph had seen, not just land and grass, but a home, a place where a family had built dreams, raised children, loved and lost. "Thompson, the equipment is ready, the permits are approved. We just need your order." Thunder rested his muzzle on his free hand, as if he could feel the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "I want to meet the other families." "What?" "The families still living in the area. I want to meet them before we proceed." "Marcus, that doesn't make sense. They're just bureaucratic hurdles. People who have to leave anyway." "They're not hurdles, Thompson. They're people." Silence on the other end of the line. "Marcus, are you all right? Ever since you started going to that property, you've been acting strangely." He looked at Thunder, who remained by his side, silent but present. "Maybe I'm acting more human for the first time in decades." "What does that mean?" "It means that tomorrow I'm going to visit every family still living here. I want to hear their stories before I make any decision." "But Marcus," he hung up the phone. Thunder stepped back a few paces and looked him directly in the eye. In that moment, Marcus had the strange feeling that the horse was judging him, and for the first time in his life, he hoped he would pass the test. The first house Marcus visited belonged to the Walkers, a young family with 2 small children and a vegetable garden that looked like a rainbow of greens and flowers. "Mr. Wellington," Sarah Walker greeted him at the door with surprise. "I wasn't expecting. I thought the company reps were coming next week. May I come in? I'd like to talk." The house was simple but welcoming. Children's drawings on the walls, the smell of homemade bread in the air, toys scattered on the floor. Everything his downtown penthouse had never been. "Caleb!" Sarah called to her husband, who came in from the garden with dirt on his hands. A young man, maybe in his early 30s, with the honest face of someone who works hard. "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Wellington." The children, a girl of perhaps 6 and a boy of 4, peeked out curiously from behind their mother. "Sorry about the mess," Sarah said, quickly gathering the toys. "Don't worry. Actually, I wanted to get to know you better, to understand how you live here." The couple exchanged confused glances. "We live well," Caleb said cautiously. "We work the land, raise our kids, have a simple but good life. How long have you lived here?" "I was born in this house," Caleb answered. "My parents built it 40 years ago. Sarah came from the city when we got married, but she adjusted well. It was hard at first." Sarah smiled. "I was used to the city bustle, but then I discovered the peace that exists here, the silence before dawn, the birds singing, the kids playing freely. And now you have to leave all of this." The silence that followed was heavy. "We know we don't have a choice," Caleb said finally. "The company bought the land legally. We'll move to the city, try to start over." "Daddy's going to work in a factory," the little girl said, with the cruel honesty of children. "He doesn't want to, but he's going to." Caleb blushed. "It's just a transition." Marcus looked out the window and saw the carefully tended garden, the fruit trees, the small pen where a few chickens pecked peacefully. "And all this? A lifetime of work?" "We'll make a new life," Sarah said, but her voice carried a poorly disguised sadness. "The children will have access to better schools in the city." "But I like my school here," the boy protested. "Miss Martha lets us grow bean plants." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. At the second house, he met Robert, an 80-year-old widower who kept bees and made the best honey in the region. At the third, the Johnson family, who had a small artisanal cheese operation. Each story was a world, each family a lifetime of work, love and dreams built on the land he planned to turn into a parking lot. When he returned to Thunder late that afternoon, he was mentally exhausted. "They trust me," he said to the horse who was grazing peacefully. "They think I'm just another executive visiting the properties." Thunder raised his head and watched him. "If they knew I was the one responsible for destroying their lives." The horse came closer and rested its muzzle on his shoulder. The simple gesture brought unexpected comfort. "What would Joseph do in my situation?" Obviously, Thunder couldn't answer, but Marcus imagined he knew. Joseph would protect his land, his family, his community. The phone rang. It was Thompson, as always. "Marcus, the investors have called an emergency meeting. They want answers about the delays." "What meeting?" "Tomorrow at 9. In your office. They're threatening to pull funding if we don't start demolition by Friday." "And what if I say I don't want to do this project anymore?" "What do you mean?" Marcus looked at Thunder, who was still there by his side, patient and present. "What if I say I've changed my mind?" "Marcus, that's $15 million, signed contracts. You can't just—" "Yes, I can, Thompson. It's my money, my company, my decision." But why?" Marcus looked around. The property that 3 weeks ago was just numbers on a spreadsheet now pulsed with life and history. "Because I found something more valuable than money." The emergency meeting was a controlled disaster. Marcus arrived at his 50th floor office at 9 o'clock sharp, but his mind was miles away, on a rural property where a golden horse was waiting for him. "Wellington, have you lost your mind?" James Morrison, the lead investor, slammed his fist on the mahogany table. $15 million invested. And you want to cancel everything because what? You got attached to some country folk? They're not country folk, Morrison. They're people, with histories, families, lives built there. So what? That's how business works. Progress requires sacrifice. Marcus looked out the panoramic window. Down below, the city churned in a constant rush. Cars, people, buildings stretching to the horizon. All concrete, all driven by the relentless machine of profit. "Thompson, show them the alternative numbers I asked for." His lawyer hesitated. "Marcus, are you sure?" "Show them." Thompson opened a folder with clear reluctance. "If we were to convert the project into a sustainable agri-tourism center, keeping the families on as local partners." "Agri-tourism?" Morrison laughed with contempt. "What kind of return would that give us?" "Lower," Marcus admitted, "but sustainable in the long term, and it would preserve the community." "You're talking about preserving a dozen families versus a complex that would generate hundreds of jobs. Temporary construction jobs and a few permanent ones at the mall, but it would destroy a way of life that has existed for generations." The silence in the room was tense. The other investors exchanged disbelieving glances. "Marcus," said Sarah Chen, who had worked with him for 15 years, "what happened? You've completely changed in 3 weeks." He thought of Thunder, of Joseph's journal, of the Walker children playing freely in the fields. Maybe I've finally seen who I've become. A successful businessman. A man without a soul. Morrison stood up abruptly. Fine. If you want to throw 15 million down the drain, do it, but not with our money. He looked at the other investors. Let's go. Wellington is clearly not in a state to make rational decisions. One by one, the investors left. Thompson remained, nervously shuffling papers. Marcus, they're going to pull the funding. The project is dead. I know. And you're okay with that? Marcus thought about the question. 3 weeks ago, losing 15 million would have enraged him. Now, strangely, yes. So now what? What do we do with the property? We're giving it back. What do you mean? We're going to find a legal way to return the land to the families, at no cost to them. Thompson dropped his papers. Marcus, that's crazy, maybe, but it's the right thing to do. When he was alone in the office, Marcus looked around. Awards on the walls, photos with politicians and important business leaders, a desk that cost more than most people's cars, symbols of a success that suddenly felt empty. He took only what was essential and left. Thunder was waiting for him, as always, but this time Marcus brought more than feed and vet supplies. He brought a decision. I did something crazy today, he said, stroking the golden mane. I lost a lot of money. I'll probably have legal trouble. My reputation in the business world is ruined. Thunder watched him with those calm brown eyes. But you know what? For the first time in decades, I slept well last night. The horse came closer and pressed its forehead against his, a simple gesture, but one that carried immense emotional weight. Joseph was right about you. You have a human soul, and maybe you helped me find mine. The sun began to set, painting the sky in golden hues that perfectly matched Thunder's coat. In his journal, Joseph had written about moments like this, when the land seemed to embrace those who loved it. Marcus finally understood what he meant. His phone rang. This time it wasn't Thompson. It was a local number. Hello? Mr. Wellington? It's Sarah Walker. I heard the project was cancelled. Is it true? Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile in years. It's true, Sarah. Very true. On the other end of the line, he could hear Caleb celebrating in the background, the children shouting with joy. Mr. Wellington, thank you so much. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. Just keep taking good care of this land. When he hung up, Thunder was grazing peacefully, as if he knew everything had changed for the better. In the weeks that followed, Marcus discovered a side of himself he'd forgotten existed. He woke up early, not for meetings or international calls, but to care for Thunder and talk with the neighbors who no longer had to fear eviction. Mr. Wellington! Little Emily Walker ran up to him one sunny morning. Look what I planted. She held up a small pot with a sunflower seedling. It's beautiful, Emily. Mommy said you saved our house. Is that true? Marcus knelt to her level. Actually, I think you all saved mine. The little girl looked at him, confused, but smiled anyway. Elena showed up almost every day to visit Thunder. Little by little, she told more stories about Joseph, about the ranch in its glory days, about the dreams they had built there. You're a bit like him, she said one afternoon as they watched Thunder gallop freely across the field. How so? Joseph was stubborn too. When he decided to do something, nothing could change his mind. She smiled, and he had that same look in his eyes when he looked at the horses. What look? The look of someone who understood there are more important things than money. Marcus had hired a local architect to develop the sustainable agritourism project. It wouldn't be as profitable as the mall, but it would preserve the community and still generate income for the families. We could create nature trails, explained Robert, the beekeeper, pointing to a makeshift map. My apiary could be an educational stop. And we can offer artisanal cheese-making workshops, Sarah Walker added, excited. City people love authentic rural experiences. Thunder could be one of the attractions, Caleb suggested, a rescued horse that represents the history of the region. The idea of turning Thunder into an attraction bothered Marcus at first. But Thunder seemed to approve. He approached all visitors with the same gentleness he had shown him on the first day. It's like he knows he has an important role, Elena observed. On one particularly quiet afternoon, Marcus was sitting under a century-old tree, reviewing the plans for the country inn that would be built where the mall was once planned. Thunder grazed nearby, occasionally lifting his head to check if he was still there. His phone rang, an unknown number. Marcus Wellington. Yes, this is Daniel Miller, Elena's son. Marcus sat up straighter. He'd heard about Elena's children, all established in the city, but had never spoken to any of them. Hello, Daniel. My mother told me everything you've done. Cancelling the project, giving the land back to the families. I can't believe it. Your mother is a special woman, just like your father was from what I hear. That's why I'm calling. I heard you found his journal. I did. It's here with me. I'd like to give it back to my mother and I'd like to propose something. Marcus waited. I'm tired of city life. My wife is too. We were thinking of moving back, helping with the agri-tourism project. I know how to work with horses. Dad taught me when I was a kid. Thunder would be happy to have the company. Actually, I want to propose a partnership. You have the resources, I have the knowledge of the land and the animals. We could create something special here. Marcus looked at Thunder, who had stopped grazing and was now watching him as if he understood the importance of the moment. Daniel, I think your father would be proud. I think so too. He always said this land had a way of bringing people together. When he hung up, Thunder came over and nuzzled his hand. Looks like you're getting your family back, Marcus murmured. The horse whinnied softly as if in approval. Marcus looked around. The golden field under the afternoon sun, the Walker's house with smoke rising from the chimney, Robert's apiary buzzing softly in the distance. It was a different world from the one he had known for 60 years. A world where time moved more slowly, where people cared for one another, where a horse could teach a man what truly mattered in life. 6 months later, the transformation was complete, of both the property and Marcus. The Miller Ranch had been reborn as an agri-tourism center that honored its history while looking to the future. The small but cozy inn welcomed visitors from the city who came seeking the peace of the countryside. The local families worked as guides, instructors, and hosts, sharing their ancestral knowledge of the land. Daniel Miller had moved back with his wife and 2 young children, bringing new energy to the property. He and Marcus had become unlikely but effective partners, the young man with his practical knowledge and the veteran with his management experience. Thunder seems happier since you all came back, Marcus commented, watching the horse play with Daniel's children in the field. He was always good with kids. Dad used to say he had a protective instinct. Elena had moved back into a new little house built on the original property, close enough to the action to feel a part of everything, far enough to have her privacy. She spent her days telling visitors stories about rural life in the old days. You changed our lives, she told Marcus one afternoon, but I think we changed yours too. Marcus couldn't deny it. He had sold his penthouse in the city and built a simple house on the property. Nothing extravagant, just a place where he could wake up to the sound of birds and fall asleep watching the stars. You know, he said to Thunder on a particularly starry night, I never thought I'd learn a new trade at 60. The horse was lying nearby, chewing its cud peacefully. Marcus had learned to read its moods, its needs, its little quirks. In return, Thunder had become his constant companion, following him around the property during the day and sleeping near his house at night. The project had caught the media's attention. Travel magazines wrote about the miraculous transformation of a heartless tycoon. TV shows came to film segments on sustainability and responsible tourism. But for Marcus, the real transformation had happened on that first day, when he climbed down into a muddy well to save a horse in distress. "Mr. Marcus!" little Emily Walker's voice called out. She was running through the field, followed by Thunder, who trotted happily behind her. "What is it, kiddo?" "Mummy said you were a bad man before you met Thunder. Is that true?" The child's direct question caught him off guard. Thunder stopped beside him, as if also waiting for the answer. "I wasn't a bad man, Emily, but I wasn't a good one either. I'd forgotten how to be." "And Thunder taught you?" Marcus looked at the horse, who watched him with those wise brown eyes. "Thunder reminded me that there is goodness in the world, and that it's worth fighting for. Mommy said you lost a lot of money to help us. I lost money, yes, but I gained so much more." "What?" Marcus smiled. "A family." Emily nodded gravely, as if she understood perfectly, then ran off after a butterfly. Thunder followed her, ever watchful, ever protective. That night, Marcus received an unexpected call. It was Thompson. "Marcus, it's me." "Thompson, it's been a while. I've been following what you're doing out there. The press can't stop talking about the ranch. It's a good project. Listen, I'm calling because I'm tired." "Tired? Of what we do, of tearing down to build up, of turning everything into concrete." Thompson sighed. "You were right. It's not worth it." Marcus sat up in his chair. "What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying I'm thinking of a career change, maybe work with sustainable projects. You wouldn't happen to need a lawyer specializing in environmental preservation, would you?" Marcus looked out the window. Thunder was lying in his favorite spot by the fence, watching over the property as the family slept. "Thompson, I think Thunder would be happy to meet you." "Thunder, the horse that saved me. I thought you saved him." Marcus smiled. "That's what I thought too, but now I know it was the other way around." When he hung up, he went out for one last look at the property before bed. Thunder raised his head and whinnied softly, a nightly greeting that had become a ritual between them. "Thank you," Marcus murmured, "for everything." Thunder lay back down, content. His mission was complete. A year after the rescue, the Miller Ranch was welcoming visitors from all over the world. Families came to disconnect from technology and reconnect with nature. Stressed-out executives sought the equine therapy that Marcus had developed with the help of experts. City kids discovered where their food came from and how to care for animals. Thunder had become the unofficial star of the place, gentle with children, patient with inexperienced adults. He seemed to understand his role as an ambassador for the transformation that could happen when humans and animals truly connected. "He's getting famous," Daniel commented one morning, holding up a magazine article where Thunder was on the cover. "National Sustainable Tourism Magazine." Marcus read the headline, "The Horse That Taught a Millionaire the True Meaning of Wealth." "It's a bit embarrassing," he admitted. "Why? It's a beautiful story." "Because it makes it sound like I was heroic. In reality, I just stopped being a jerk." Elena, who had joined the conversation, laughed. "Joseph always said the greatest heroes are the ones who don't know they're heroes." Marcus had established a rural preservation fund that had already saved 3 other properties threatened by aggressive real estate projects. He used part of his fortune to buy at-risk land and return it to local communities, always following the sustainable model developed at the Miller Ranch. "It's strange," he said to Thunder one afternoon, as they watched a group of children learn to brush him. "I spent 40 years accumulating money, only to spend 15 minutes discovering I didn't need it. The horse whinnied softly as if in agreement. "Mr. Marcus!" One of the visiting children ran up to him. "Thunder let me give him a carrot. Did he like it? He loved it, and he's so soft. Thunder is special. He teaches people how to be better." "How?" Marcus knelt to the little girl's height. "He taught me that helping others makes you feel better than just taking care of yourself." The girl nodded seriously, then ran back to Thunder's side. That night, Marcus was reviewing plans for a new project, a network of sustainable rural properties that would cover the entire state, when his phone rang. "Marcus, it's Sarah Chen," his former business partner. They hadn't spoken in months. "Sarah, how are you?" "I'm okay, or trying to be." She hesitated. "Marcus, can I ask you a strange question?" "Of course. Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because I've been following your story in the media, and you seem different, lighter, and Her voice broke. "I can't remember the last time I was truly happy." Marcus looked out the window. Thunder was at his nightly post, watching over the property. Elena was humming softly on the porch of her little house. The lights from the other homes created warm, welcoming dots in the darkness. "Sarah, would you like to come spend a weekend here?" "At the ranch?" "Yes. To meet Thunder. To see how it's possible to live differently." I'd love that." When he hung up, Marcus went out for his nightly walk. Thunder got up and accompanied him, as he always did. "Another person looking for what you taught me," he said to the horse. Thunder stopped and looked him directly in the eyes. In those brown eyes, Marcus saw wisdom, patience, and a kind of unconditional love he had learned to recognize and return. "You know, when I was a kid, my grandmother used to tell me stories about guardian angels. She said they showed up when we needed them most." Marcus stroked Thunder's neck. "I never really believed it, until I met you." Thunder rested his muzzle on his chest. The gesture that had become his special way of saying, "I love you too." They walked back to the house together, man and horse, teacher and student, the saved and the savior. Above them, the stars shone down on a piece of land that had taught them both the true meaning of home. And somewhere between the stars and the earth, Marcus was sure that Joseph Miller was smiling, knowing that Thunder had fulfilled his most important mission, to save a soul that didn't even know it needed saving. Thunder whinnied softly, agreeing. His journey of healing had transformed not just one man, but an entire community. And that was only the first of many lives he would yet help to change.